This study was performed to determine if the authoritative parenting style produced happier children, in turn producing happier adults. The goal was to show a positive correlation between the authoritative parenting style producing happy children. Another goal was to determine if there was a positive correlation of any other parental style producing unhappy and insecure children. Our childhood experiences shapes the way we deal with adult life. Parents use different ways of parenting to raise their children. There have been many opinions on which approach should be taken in order to raise well-balanced children into independent, successful adults. A well-balanced adult was measured by the level of self-esteem and happiness a person has. Self-esteem is a determination of how a person feels about their self-worth or their acceptance of themselves. Happiness is the average satisfaction level a person feels over a specific time period. This study focused on 3 different parenting styles: authoritarian, authoritative, and permissive. An authoritarian form of parenting refers to a parent that has complete control over their children, with the absence of warmth and nurturing. This style is usually very unapproachable, but demanding with their authority. Parents with this parenting style are very adamant about their children being obedient and respectful. Any wavering from this expectation can result in harsh punishments. An authoritative form of parenting provides a more democratic relationship with their children. Although they do exercise control over their children, they still allow the children to have some say in decision making. Although authoritarian parents maintain limits and expectations, they are still warm and nurturing to their children. Authoritative parents tend to be more approachable and easier to talk to. A permissive form of parenting produces a parenting style that is very lenient on their children. They do not require obedience. They can be overly responsive of their needs for the sole purpose of not causing any friction between them and their children. There is no form of control or punitive system. Therefore, their children do not experience any consequences for their actions. Participants consisted of a simple random sample of 30 LSUA students of both on-campus and online students. This allowed the samples to be representative of a larger population. The students were sent a link with questions through SurveyMonkey. The link included questions from 3 separate questionnaires. One was the Parenting Practices Questionnaire. The other was the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale. And the last one was the Subjective Happiness Scale. To measure the results from these questionnaires, the MANOVA analysis was used, as well as the Pearson correlation. Both of these analyses were used to show correlation between different parenting styles and the effect it had on a person's happiness and self-esteem. The Parenting Practices Questionnaire consists of 30 questions and is based on a 5-point scale. Participants were asked to complete 2 separate questionnaires, one on their mother's parenting style and a second on their father's parenting style. Each student completed the questionnaire from a retrospective view of their parents' parenting styles. 3 parenting styles were assessed: the authoritarian, the authoritative, and the permissive. The Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale is a 10-item Likert scale that students answered. It has a 4-point scale that assesses scores from strongly agree to strongly disagree in order to measure the student's self-esteem. The subjective happiness scale is a 4-item measure of happiness. For 2 of the items, participants are asked to characterize how they relate to their peers. The remaining 2 items on the scale, participants were asked to compare their happiness and unhappiness to a brief description provided in the scale. The authoritative mother shows to have a positive correlation with happiness in the students, whereas the authoritarian mother shows to have a lesser effect on happiness, and the permissive mother shows to have the least positive effect on happiness. The authoritative father shows to have the highest positive correlation with happiness. The authoritarian father shows to have a lesser effect on the happiness, and whereas the permissive father shows to have the least positive effect on happiness. Regarding self-esteem, the authoritative mother shows to have more incidences of positive correlations with higher self-esteem. The authoritarian mother, however, shows to have a lesser effect on self-esteem. And the permissive mother shows to have the least positive effect on self-esteem, in fact showing a negative correlation towards the self-esteem. The authoritative father shows to have the highest positive correlation with self-esteem. The authoritarian father shows to have a lesser effect on self-esteem, whereas the permissive father shows to have the least positive effect on self-esteem. This study illustrated the correlations between parenting styles and how they affect happiness and self-esteem. More specifically, this study demonstrated that the authoritative parenting style resulted in happier people with higher self-esteem. This study also demonstrated that the remaining parenting styles did not produce the happiest people with the highest self-esteem, and the goal was to use the results from this study to help educate parents on the best parenting style to implement when raising their children.